wheels underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. We've got another round of your APC season ahead of us, and we've got a race number 4 at the home race of both of your commentators. It is Silverstone, it is the United Kingdom, and it is the British Grand Prix. My name's Joseph Black. I'll be taking you through all of the action alongside Kyle Stewart-Wood. Now, Kyle, of course, as I say, it is the home race for both of us. Home race for a couple of drivers as well, but I'm under the impression not all of them are looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to hear that. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, home race for most of the grid here, and I think I made a claim on last week's stream where I said, it's a favourite for almost everyone here, and it turns out no, I absolutely was wrong. It turns out a lot of drivers are looking forward to it. I've already had Owen Baldero on WhatsApp earlier today. Other apps are available. Yeah, just moaning, and it doesn't mind me saying, but he was just like, "Oh, like I hate this track. I'm not enjoying it." So I feel grateful that he's turned up. But yeah, Ollie Matthews said the similar thing last week as well. So I mean, hopefully it gives us a good race, and hopefully everyone comes out of that going, you know what, APC Silverstone's actually pretty good. It was really fun, and we love being here. But we will wait and see in 26 laps time. Well, after qualifying, and then 26 laps time. 26 laps time. I can't say that properly. I'll hand it back.
Well, of course, we've got we do have 26 laps of racing, and we will kick off with the we will kick off, of course, with the qualifying session. But just before we do that, we're going to try and run you through the standings that we've got at the moment, and it will be Andrew Chenkovan who continues to lead the way, 65 points at the top of the standings. Second place will be Alexis Mason, joint with Ollie Matthews, and third will be, of course, Ollie, who will be making his way through if he can pick up points today. Owen Baldero will be in 4th place, and Bert Welly will be in 5th, Lucas Aracini 6th, and then Leandro Ratto, who's of course left the league, he's in 7th. Matthew Gatches, Harrison Robinson and Dan Riley will round out the top 10, and then we will have Arias Stone, Connor Stewart-Woodard, Regan Harding, Ethan Shackleton and Brian Moore as well, with Alexander De Vickel, the only driver to not be able to get off the mark so far in this season of the 16 drivers. And then we've got the constructors' standings for ourselves to take a gander at, and it will be, of course, the Ferraris. At the top with our championship leader, Andrew Chenkovan. He will be joined by Ethan Shackleton in the team, and they will be on 92 points. Racing Bulls in 2nd, and Aston Martin in 3rd. McLaren with no drivers, but they have 25 points. Mercedes in 5th place, and Williams find themselves in 6th. Then it's Haas and Kick Sauber, and then Red Bull and Alpine have not got anybody in those teams yet. I'm having mic issues, so as we head over to the race view, I'm going to hand over to Kyle to talk you through the 12 drivers that we've got on our hands today.
Yeah, I was worried if that was just maybe my side. I was a bit like, what's happening with the microphone disappearing and backing out? But yeah, most of the drivers here then. Well, in theory, Bert Welly is yet to show up. He should be here, so he can join any time in the next 17 minutes during qualifying sessions, hopefully. That is what will happen. We have Ethan Shackleton. Shack Attack is back on the track. Yes, that rhymed, and I very much intended that. So looking forward to seeing what he can do back now. Obviously, he's had a bit of a difficult start to the season so far, so we're hoping to bounce back after Alexis Mason jumped in his car last week and showed what you can do in the Ferrari. Obviously, equal cars, so that is just, just for commentary, really. But yes, Alexis Mason was supposed to be here, was meant to jump in the Mercedes, was meant to be a teammate with Dan Riley this week, but hasn't shown at the last minute, so she'll also maybe will join, hopefully, fingers crossed. But we've got both Kick Saubers, we've got both Hasses, we've got both Williams, we've got the one RB and one Mercedes, and both Aston Martins, of course. We're looking forward to seeing what they can do. We've got Owen Baldero then, who says I think he's been P5 every race so far, so he's very much hoping to fix that and do something a bit more impressive this week. I mean, not that P5 isn't impressive, but he's not very pleased with that so far. Ollie Matthews then has been on a upward trajectory since the first race. He has got closer and closer to the winning spot and came 2nd last week out. So my prediction for this week will be Ollie Matthews for the win. I think that's very doable, although of course we do have Andrew Chenkovan here. But we saw last week Andrew Chenkovan is not immune to mistakes, so we'll have to wait and see if this is another track where he'll make a mistake. Not that he previously has. He's won here many times in the past, but almost everyone's out then, apart from Ethan Shackleton for their first laps. Dan Riley, I believe, is going to be the first to cross the line. I'm looking forward to seeing what time he can put in, as he's now done. Well, he's done a purple sector too, because he's the first one on track, but he's now in the third sector. Will be crossing the line very shortly.
Yeah, Dan Riley will be coming around the final and starting what will be, or ending even what will be, his qualifying lap. I don't know what's going on with this mic. It's really annoying me. I have plugged my other one just in case. It does appear to want to keep doing that, so I'll change it in just a second. But Dan Riley up to the line with a 26.
I think I'll jump back in. The only other issue I'm having here, Joseph, though, is I can't actually see what you're broadcasting. So I'm going to kind of go by what I can see on my screen, and while you get your microphone issues sorted. But at some point I'll need to see what you're seeing. But yes, it's a 125.5 then for Ethan. No, Ethan, that's Andrew Chenkovan then. So 9 tenths up, make that 7 tenths up on P2 of Lucas Seracini. Lucas very, very keen to get a race win this week. He was in the chat earlier, almost telling Alexis not to turn up because he's worried he won't be able to get the win. But of course, Andrew Chenkovan is still very much here. Dan Riley then comes in third place at the moment with 126.4. Ollie Matthews 126.9, and then 127 dead for Owen Baldero. Matthew Gatchis 127.2. Brian Moore 128.9. Regan and Harrison currently on a lap. Shakhtar on an outlap, and Alexander Vickle, Connor Shitwood have both abandoned their laps or got into the pit, so they have probably accidentally messed up their laps somewhere along the line. Well, we'll have to see what happens to those in a bit. But as it currently stands, then it's a 7-tenth gap between first and second, and only 2 tenths back to third. But the Aston Martins are basically doing the same time. They're basically together running probably Noah's Ark. And this is something we've seen a lot during this season so far. They're very similar on pace. They are in a track together as well. So we'll have to see that they work together very well. So I'm seeing your message, Joseph. Regan, a bit of a gap back to Matt Gatchis. Matt Gatchis is there or thereabouts with the Aston Martins, and then Brian is a little way off yet, so 1.1 seconds, so quite a lot of time to find, but I'm sure he will be able to find something a little better than that.
Yeah, quite a lot of time to find. I'm hoping that sounds better, by the way. I've switched back to the old mic from a few weeks ago. I'm hoping that's going to sound a little bit better, as that will be Harrison Robinson up to the line, Ethan Shackleton in the first sector, and the Ferrari will see what he can do. Apologies for the technical issues, of course. They're not ideal, but we will see what we can do with them as we head through this race. Ethan Shackleton then heading out to the second sector, and it will be a 1 minute 3.396. He's just going to pick up a bit of slipstream off of the V-carb on the inside line, and then he's just got a couple of corners to go before he finishes off this lap. At the moment, 9 drivers have set a time. If Shackleton can keep it clean, he will make it 10, and he'll come around the final couple of corners and drive up to the line. Now, what is he going to be able to do? It's going to be a 1 minute at the very least, 1 minute 27.3, so not ideal. Could have been better, could have been a lot worse for Ethan Shackleton for that time. Ollie Matthews improving, but not by much. 0.048 in the first 2 sectors, and has found a bit more time. He's made his way, well, he's held 4th place. He's made his way a little bit further away from his teammate, a little bit closer to Dan Riley in the top 3 ahead. But at the moment, that's exactly where they find themselves. Bit better from Harrison Robinson this time. Around 5 seconds is what he's gained in the first 2 sectors. So he's just gone for warm-up laps, and now he's taking the opportunity to come around the final few corners and finish off this lap in the Williams, trying to beat his teammate Regan, who's got a 127.829. Very wide, just about manages somehow to make it valid, but that's a 1 minute 27.531 that takes him up to 8th place.
Yeah, that's a good showing then. Again, Williams are another team that seem to be always very much. I was muted, wasn't I? Yeah, that's very good then. Yeah, so
I think you might not be connected to your mic. I think you might be going through the headset.
Very interesting, dude. Let me have a quick look at that. That'll explain why we're having some issues on my side. It's something I did correct. I'm sure I did. I did correct it, but it has.
It's gone back. That's very odd. I had corrected earlier on when I joined the chat, and it seems to have gone back. Very strange. So Apologies, everyone, for the technical issues on the both of us. But I think from now on, we will be able to give you the best viewing experience possible. But I was just saying, yeah, the Williams then, another team that often run quite close together. Obviously, 3-10 gap at the moment, but they are together as it stands on track. Technically, the kick salvers are also, but they're obviously, one of them is at the back, and one of them is yet to set a lap. However, Connor Stewart is currently out on an out lap then, so we'll see how that looks. And then Alexandra Vickles, the only one who had to not yet set a time, who is currently on a lap. So looking forward to seeing what that's going to be, but he is currently in the first sector, so it's going to be a little while until we see that one then. But yeah, some really good times out there at the moment. I mean, I'll do it again. It's not Alexander Chenkovan. It's I've actually forgotten his first name. I've confused myself so much. Let's go with Chenky. Chenky is 7/10 gap then, so quite a big gap ahead of everyone else. Everyone else is quite close together. 4/10 gap between Dan Riley and Ollie Matthews then. But everyone else is about within 2 tenths, other than Brian Moore. So yeah, I feel like this is a lot of time to go. I feel like it's not the end. I feel like that we're going to get much closer times towards the end. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Alexander's going to do, because he's been fighting with the Kick Salvers and partially the Williams from time to time as well. So he's hoping to improve race on race, he says, and get further up the field and start battling with the likes of his teammate and potentially the Aston Martins at some point. That is his hope. So we'll see what he can do when he comes across the line. A lot of other cars on track, yellow flags ahead of him. That's actually his teammate, so maybe a little slipstream can come in.
Yeah, potentially so. We'll see as Alexander Vickel will come through the final few corners, set his first lap on the board, and we'll see what he's going to be capable of. Just a couple of corners to go, and there we go, around the final one, and that will be Vickel up to a 1:28.777, finding himself in 10th place. Andrei Chenkovan then is going to be purple in that second sector, so keep an eye on that lap. But Ethan Shackleton, final corner for himself, and it will be a 1:26.673 as an improvement from the Ferrari, and a 6.7 to boot, the first one of the evening. Andrei Chenkovan is currently 7 tenths ahead of Lucas Erracini, hoping to extend that gap. Of course he does, but not by much. 0.026 is what he's found, so he's nearing that perfection as Regan Harding, the next driver. He's in 9th place at the moment. He'll be the next driver to come across the line, so everybody sort of in and around different places. They're not all in the same spot, as that's a Haas car parked up as into the pit comes Regan Harding. Not sure what's happened here to Alexander Vickel. I think he is just plainly getting out of people's way, and he'll be getting going very shortly. There we go. Alexander Vickel back to racing once again, and he'll be into the pit lane. 7 minutes left in the session. Chenkovan very much on top.
Yeah, one good thing about Alexander Vickel is, he's not been the fastest at the moment, but he's very good at getting out of the way and giving people space. He did actually speak to me last week about looking at that rule when it comes to getting out of the way for blue flags and how that works. There's something else we're reviewing, but yeah, he's very good at that and making sure he doesn't get himself in anyone's way and cause any penalties for himself. He wants to go through the season and have a clean run. Lucas Seracini, he validated then on the lap, so he's going to probably have to go again, yes, but he's going to abandon first, and then he's going to go again because he did abandon on his lap at turn 1, quite annoyingly for him. So he's not too pleased about that, I'm sure. I'm not watching his stream, but I'm sure he's not too pleased about that one. Connor Stewart Woodard then, he's put his time in, and he is leading that little rear gaggle of cars then. So he is in 10th position with 1:27.9, and it's a 8/10 gap back to Alexandra Vickel, and then another 2/10 gap back to Brian Moore. But however, so Connor he's actually knocking on the door for Williams time this week out, so he'll be looking to kind of get involved in the mix there and maybe get ahead of him, and maybe even Matthew Gatchis. I'm sure he'll be very pleased with that if that's something he can do. On board with Ollie Matthews then, he's going to go through the second sector here. As he hits the second sector split then, what is the improvement going to be? It's going to be a 3/10 improvement then, so that's enough for quite a significant jump up the field there. That's 2 positions. It's 1 position actually. My maths clearly not working fast enough. So that'll put him in 4th position. But if he gets a nice clean 3rd sector here, that could put him into 3rd and potentially even 2nd, to the detriment of Lucas Seracini, who would be very upset if that's the case. But let's see what Ollie's going to do then as he goes across the line. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, there's a half a second improvement there then. So that has put him into 3rd position. So very, very close to Lucas Seracini, but ahead of Daniel Riley.
Yeah, ahead of Daniel Riley, up to third place. And, of course, Luca Saraceni still on that front row of the grid, and he will be happy to hold on to that one. He's got high expectations of himself this season, has Luca, in comparison to last, and that's just a demonstration of the pace advantage that he's got in comparison to himself from last year. Probably the most improved driver on this field from those that we've seen repeat. So fair enough that he's been able to make those gains. This will be Harrison Robinson around the final couple of corners. At the moment, 27.5 for his time, so he's sort of stuck in a bit of no man's land, and well, he'll be going again on the lap after setting a 31. But yeah, he'll be trying to improve on that lap that puts him in 8th place. A little bit of a lull as everybody gets themselves ready for their final runs. And it should be very, very good, this fight for pole position. But of course, Andrea Chenkovan in prime position for it at the moment. I think it's more over to the switch for P2. And I think it's more over to everybody trying to take that position off of Luca Saraceni, which is something we couldn't have said many times last season. So fair play to him for finding those improvements. Not sure if he still knows assists, or not sure if he's given up on that venture, but he's certainly got a lot of pace in reserve and looking to exercise it here today. Harrison Robinson at the end of the first sector coming through the second. His teammate is also, I believe, on an in-lap though, Regan Harding, as well they will just continue on through this sector. And well, at the moment he's done 4 laps on this stint, has Harrison Robinson. He's not come into the pit lane once, and so that is very, very interesting. It's something we only really see in something like this, and pretty much only in the Williams. We saw it from Harry Jennings last year. We saw it from his teammate as well. We don't see it from any of the other teams, but it's a unique run plan that the Williams seem to adopt. And well, is it now into the pit lane for Harrison Robinson? Yes, it is. Regan Harding doing the same. And well, we will get our final laps underway with just a few moments' time, as well, we're having our first couple out of the pit lane, and it looks to be both the Hasses.
Regan Harding then was not on an in lap, he was on a push lap, and if you're watching post live, you'll see the replay. He invalidated out of Maggots and Beckett's after being half a second up. That lap would have put him in 8th, potentially 7th position then, ahead of his teammate and ahead of Matthew Gatchis if he'd improved more. So he'd be very, very upset about that. But lucky for him, he has time to pull in, although his teammate is currently blocking him and in the way. But he should just have enough time to get in, to get some fresh tyres on and go again. But it's going to be very tight for him, actually. He's going to have to cut a few corners, which, again, you can do in qualifying as long as it's done safely. So we'll see how that looks. All the other cars are all coming out on track at the same time. Dan Riley is leading a train of kick Saubers here, but a lot of other cars are already gone out. The Hasses are out. There's an Aston out. There's a Ferrari out. And then there is I'm going to say it's Luca. Honestly, this game, all the blues are far too similar. But yeah, everyone's going to go then. It's all going to happen at once. The Williams tried to run in the lull, as well as, I can't remember who it was now. Someone else was running in the lull. But yeah, they're going to have to go again. And with everyone else, and it's all going to be chaos towards the end. But this track always throws up some surprises, and it's so easy to invalidate your lap here, as we've seen from the likes of Regan and Lucas Ferracini. So everyone's got to be very careful. But I mean, if you've got a time in like Lucas, for example, you can probably afford just to give it everything and just see what comes of it, you know. And if you invalidate it, you've got a good bank of time in anyway.
Yeah, and if you haven't got a decent lap in, the likes of Connor Stewart-Wood, the likes of Brian Moore won't feel as though they've got a decent lap in because they're right at the very back of the field. You can feel the pressure, and well, it's going to get even more if you are going to invalidate. It will be Matthew Gatchis to take us on to the final runs, and the Haas driver heads through the first sector to see what he can do in comparison to the rest of this field. At the moment, he's got a 127.242, which puts him 0.2 back on Owen Boldero and 0.2 ahead of Harrison Robinson. So a decent position to find himself in, but still a lot of work to do. At the end of the first sector, it will be a lap time, which is an improvement by 0.8183. So that's a good start to the lap, but one he has to back up, and he'll give it his best shot, you know, to back it up, because that is a very, very good start. That will put him somewhere near Owen Boldero. Regan Harding out of the session in the first corner. Not sure what's happened there, as Matthew Gatchis heads through the second sector, keeps it valid somehow, but goes very far off of the circuit, and somehow that has not been flagged by the in-game stewards as being off of the circuit. That usually they go off there. But there is a couple of dead spots around this circuit that if you've practiced enough, you'll be able to find. Gatches has lost 5,000ths of a second, or 500ths even, in that little moment. But he'll still come across the line with an improvement, you would imagine, unless he loses a lot of time in this final couple of corners, which he will not be doing, and he will head out of the final corner with an improved time. Everybody will as the checkered flag is waved, and Gatches then will come to the line. It'll be a 1 minute 27.023. That puts him ahead of Owen Boldero by 1,000th of a second, but it's an Owen Boldero who's improving. Alexander Uvikel's going to spin around the final corner, so he's not going to improve on his 1:28.777. He might be at the back. He's already on the back row of the field. Owen up to 6th, just about jumping at the man who just stole that position off him, Matthew Gatches. Andrea Chenkovan back up to the top, and back up with an even bigger gap, almost an entire second splitting the top two, and Lucas Aracini cuts it down to 7/10 of a second. That'll be off the circuit for Dan Riley at the final corner. We'll have a look to see if we can see what happened to Dan there. We can't, but it will be Brian Moore to the line with a 28.476, so a bit of an improvement for himself. And then Ollie Matthews around the final corner. Disqualification for some reason for Alexander Uvikel, who will be at the back of the field anyway. And then Ethan Shackleton to round out our times, up by 3/10. That'll be up by 4/10 by the end, but that'll be Chenkovan on top, Lucas Aracini alongside Ollie Matthews and Ethan Shackleton, the second row of the grid. But I don't know what's happened to Dan Riley there.
There were improvements all round then, so that was very fun to watch. So yeah, Andrew Chenkovan improving. Lucas Aracini getting very close to Andrew Chenkovan's previous time, but he obviously pushed that further up. Ollie Matthews very close in behind then. And one thing I was on board with there, Connor Stewart-Woodard, I was on board because I wanted to see if he could get that lap to challenge Regan, and he was half a second up, and then invalidated coming out of Maggots and Beckett, so he was on to get ahead of both the Williams.
Yeah, but not in the end. But the pace will promise for Connor, as we'll get Andrea Chenkovan taking pole position by 7/10 of a second ahead of Lucas Aracini in second place. Third will go to Ollie Matthews, and fourth will be Ethan Shackleton, and then Dan Riley and Owen Boldero will make up the third row of the grid. Matthew Gatches, who had technical problems in qualifying, will be alongside Harrison Robinson, Regan Harding and Connor Stewart-Woodard round out the top 10, and then Brian Moore and Alexander Uvikel will round out our 12-car field. I'm slightly worried for Alexandru because he couldn't even get a valid lap on the board at all.
Yeah, no, disqualification is obviously a bit unfair. I think he was just trying to be too fair, but I think he stopped dead somewhere on the track, and that'd be why that happened. So, yeah, a bit unfortunate, which means he will start dead last. I actually don't remember if he was dead last before that, but yeah, that spin at the end as well. Not ideal. Dan Riley, be interesting to see what happened there, but it wasn't unfortunately caught on the replay cameras, and he doesn't stream anymore. So maybe I can try and keep an eye on the chat in a bit. But yeah, but otherwise, everyone else though, very, very close by, and I'm looking at very close by, very close in time. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what this is going to translate to on the track when we go racing 26 laps around this circuit here in Northamptonshire. It is Northamptonshire, that's the right county, I'm sure it is. But Andrew Chenkovan obviously miles ahead of P2, 7/10 then. So is it going to be a case that he's just going to run away? I mean, we hope not. We want to see some good racing, but we can't rule it out, can we? But as I said, my prediction for this one will be Ollie Matthews. He will cross the line first in 26 laps time, and he will celebrate his first win this season. But yeah, I haven't jinxed him. That's what I'm predicting.
Ollie Matthews will be certainly hoping that you haven't jinxed him, as we're going to be able to go down track side. It'll be a one-stop strategy here today, most likely, a medium and a hard set up for the drivers. But of course, they could go for something different. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do. But it's very good. 12 drivers on this field. Of course, no Aria Stone, no Alexis Mason, nobody like that. So we will, of course, see what will happen across the course of this race. Regan Harding's disconnected from the session. That's very unfortunate for himself, and he'll hope to get back in before the end of the formation lap. But yeah, who's your early prediction apart from Ollie Matthews? So I changed it a little bit. I changed the requirements. Who's your unpopular call? Who do you think is going to do well from a position that we don't quite expect it? For me, just to give you an example, I think I'm going to go for Owen Boldero. I think he's going to pick up a podium from that 6th spot.
I think Connor Stewart-Woodard, he does do well at Silverstone for some reason. He just tends to be a good track for him. So I wouldn't rule him out for perhaps a top 5, top 6. I think podium might be a bit out of reach for him. He is obviously down in 10th position, but I would be, and that's not me being biased, of course. I just genuinely think this is one of his better tracks, and I can see him capitalising from others' mistakes during this one. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can do that. And I mean, Alex Vickel, he'd be hoping just to not be last, I think, on this one. He's not been the fastest so far, but he always sticks it out and he always goes to the end. Dan Riley, of course, has had a very, very unlucky few races, and he'll be hoping to stop that trend right here at his home track. Of course, Somerset he lives. I'm trying to remember if he lives close to here. No, he doesn't live close to this one. But and the other person, obviously, Harrison Robinson. That's it. Harrison Robinson. He had a streak of unlucky races for the first few races, but was able to get a good result last time out. So we're hoping to keep that trend going forward. And Bert Welly, I've just seen, he's just appeared online in the server. However, he has obviously just missed the boat in terms of getting into the race. So that is unfortunate. He will miss this one. So that's the one thing there. Now we're in the race. We have confirmed that Bert Welly will not be here. Alexis Mason won't be here. And I had forgot to mention Silverstone earlier on. I do apologise. He was sitting out this one. He has plans this week. In fact, did we get a reason? I'll have a look at that in a minute. But yeah, he's not able to make this one this week out. But yeah, the formation lap then. I mean, Andrew Chenkovan's kind of showing what he wants to do in the race then, running away from the pack.
Yeah, running away from the pack. He's going to hope to start as he means to go on in this race session. Chenkovan coming through the final few corners, and then he will get us underway for the racing. And, of course, Lucas Aracini will be alongside him. A good qualifying position from the V-Cub, and he'll be hoping to capitalise on it. Ollie Matthews in third. He'll be trying to make it up to the front row into the first corner. Difficult to overtake there, but he'll give it his best shot. Ethan Shackleton, fourth place for him. And, well, Dan Riley will be in fifth. Owen Boldero in sixth. A number of drivers who I would say are podium pace, and they are all going to be stacking up the top 6 rows of the field. Then the top six rows of the field, because that's everybody, but the top 6 drivers especially I think are ones to look out for. Matthew Gatches, Harrison Robinson, Regan Harding, Connor Stewart-Woodard, Brian Moore and Alexander Vickel could of course all surprise me, and of course they're all going to be within points contention here today. Only 12 drivers, but they are all backing up. They're all on the grid, and we've got our 5 lights on ahead of the drivers for the British Grand Prix. The drivers are ready, and the action gets underway now. Andrea Chenkovan off to a good start. Lucas Aracini is going to tuck in behind. 2 drivers trying to fight with Ollie Matthews into the first corner. That'll be Owen Boldero and Dan Riley. Off at the circuit for Brian Moore in the background, but it will be Andrea Chenkovan to lead the way. A move potentially for Matthew Gatches on Dan Riley around the outside. It was the inside. It's now switched to the outside line. Can he sweep his way through? The answer is going to be no. There's contact between the 2 drivers. Riley goes a little bit too far to the inside. Matthew Gatches tries to move across to defend him, and in the end actually makes a bit of counter contact with the Mercedes, and Dan Riley, huge lunge. This fight is going to continue on. Dan Riley giving Matthew Gatches a good old squeeze. Matthew keeping a tyre in there. He was of course ahead on the entry of the corner, but on the exit Dan Riley remains alongside. They'll head down to Copse for the first time in this race, and Regan Harding struggled to get off the line. Dan Riley is ahead of Matthew Gatches, and it's a dramatic start to our race that sees Alexander Vickel and Brian Moore both fighting it out for 9th place. I'm not sure what's happened to Connor there, but it's not a great start for him, not a great start for Regan. A great start though for these 2, and a great start for the top 2 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was crazy. Dan Riley then falling down the order, although he was able to stay ahead of Matthew Gatches in the end, so he'd be quite happy with that. Brian Moore and Alexander Vickel still going side by side now. They've been going side by side for basically this entire lap, and they went side by side through Copse Corner. Now, that all I can think of is that famous quote from Horner, Ben, you don't got the inside of Copse Corner, but he did, and they both came off. They both came through it, and I'd be very happy about that. Now, Connor Stewart-Woodard then had a spin, and I don't want to get the corner name wrong, so I'm not gonna say it, but he had a spin in the second sector. Then in the early part of the second sector, as Regan Harding then he has retired. So he's retired in the pit lane, so he had a very poor start. It's going to be something to do with him not being able to get in the car during formation lap, because he rejoined the session late. They would not let him have his car until after the formation lap, and I think something happened and he was caught off guard when the restart happened. As Connor Stewart-Woodard then is going to go down the inside of Alexander Vickel. Alexander Vickel holds it on front and the outside, and somehow carries a lot more pace. I mean, I'm not really sure what happened to Connor there. Connor just seemed to lose all the pace mid-corner, so He'll reset and have another go shortly, but yeah, it was a bit of a crazy one at the back of the field at the start. Obviously, I was trying to keep an eye on what was going on. Ethan Shackleton then ahead of Matthew Gatches now as well, and Harrison is going to have a go on Matthew Gatches very shortly, by the looks of it.
Yeah, 3/10 back at the moment, and Matthew Gatches with the DRS on Ethan Shackleton. Big gaps already opening up in this field, including one at the very top. Lucas Aracini just about sticking with the DRS of Andrea Chenkovan, but I don't think that's going to last very much longer. Ollie Matthews already out of the DRS of Luca as well, and Owen Boldero managing to cling on. Dan Riley trying to cling on to Owen Boldero. Ethan Shackleton 2.8 seconds back on Dan Riley, so I don't think he's going to be anywhere near close to the fight at this point in time. Gatches gets a poor exit out of the final corner. Harrison Robinson capitalises, and he's up into 7th place, trying to make his way back into the DRS, because of course that is so very crucial around most circuits, including this one as well. Lap 3 of 26 that we've had, and this is an incredible gap opened up by Andrea Chenkovan. The last lap, just for context, the last laps between the two drivers at the top, Andrea Chenkovan had a 1:29.280, and Lucas Aracini had a 1:29.883. So that is over 6/10 back between the two drivers. And those are the two quickest at the top of the field. Of course, Ollie Matthews and Owen Boldero set slightly quicker laps, but that is the difference between those drivers at the top and Andrea Chenkovan. And that is why he's been a multiple-time champion. The pace that he holds over the rest of the field, and he'll hope to continue that one on throughout the remainder of this race and of this season as well. Of course, we are on round number 2 of it, and no, round number 4 of it even. I don't know where I got round number 2 from. Round number 4 of it, and well, that's still early stages, but Andrea Chenkovan here, absolutely unbelievable, as he always is. And, well, he continues that momentum through this race. Dan Riley just trying to cling onto the DRS of Owen Boldero. I think he's just about outside of it as they will head into the next detection zone in a couple of corners' time. But I think his cornering speed is a lot better, and I think he will actually end up being in range.
Yeah, one thing we're seeing here is how powerful the DRS is then. So Lucas Aracini has obviously dropped out the DRS range of Andrea Chenkovan, and that means that all 3 cars behind him are hassling him, and he cannot drop them. Without the DRS, he's not able to drop them. And this train that he's putting through here, it is probably going to go on for a while until somebody gets ahead of him. It seems like a formality at some point that one of these drivers will pull the trigger and go for a move, and obviously Ollie Matthews is the closest to doing that. So yeah, unfortunate that we've got a yellow flag, and that is one of the Haas cars then. That is going to be Matthew Gatches then. So he's had a bit of a tough time. He's been falling down the order over the last few laps as Connor Stewart-Woodard then obviously going for moving. Connor Stewart-Woodard is also spanned. So actually, did they come together? I think they must have come together there. So yeah, so he's having a bit of a bad time there. And Connor Stewart-Woodard as well. He's showing good pace, but every time he gets near another car, he's not able to keep it in a straight line. So that's something he's going to need to work on, I think, if he's going to get anywhere in this race and make me right when I said he was going to go for a potential top 6 as he runs wide there. So yeah, Matthew Gatches, he started off well and then slowly started falling down the order. So not sure what's happened. What's his pace there? He seemed to have really good early pace, and now he's dropping back. Of course, I haven't actually checked the tyres in a little while. As actually, there's also a battle now as Alexander Vickel and Brian Moore are still going side by side. These two will not leave each other alone. It's quite romantic, if you ask me. But yeah, battles all over the place. But I feel like that battle for P2, that's going to be the one where it's as soon as one of those drivers pull the trigger and go for it, it's gonna those positions are going to change quite a lot.
Maybe this is the new marriage. Of course, I've married quite a few drivers so far this season. Yeah. This could be yet another one. But there was allegedly contact between those two drivers, of course, Connor Stewart-Woodard, and it was Alexander Vickel who it was registered as those two drivers having contact, so that's unfortunate. But they'll be hoping to rebuild from that point. Of course, the last driver on the track at the moment, the only one outside of the points is Connor Stewart-Woodard. Regan Harding out of the session, not going to be picking up points. There will be one unlucky man here today, unless there'll be any more retirements. And of course I say man because everybody in this race today is a man. That's what they've given us, at least in the pronouns sheet. Ollie Matthews 3/10 back on Lucas Aracini, who's dropped significantly over the last few laps on the cars in front. Again, for reference, I'll give you more points of reference. on Andrea Chenkovan against the rest of the field. Andrea, last lap, 1:30.277. The second place, which is, of course, Lucas Erracini, who set an identical time to Ollie Matthews, a 1:31.697. So he was exactly 1 second and 4/10 and then 2/100 back. That's an unbelievable gap for him to have eked out. And that's an unbelievable difference between the two drivers. I know Lucas Erracini is going to be a little bit worried about the cars behind, but still, that's an absolutely ridiculous gap for himself. And, well, he'll just keep trying to extend his advantage at this Silverstone circuit. Seracini is going to have Ollie Matthews on the back of him, hoping to get through. Ollie Matthews in himself is going to have Owen Boldero behind him, hoping to get through. Both drivers quicker than the last, at the moment at least, and they'll be hoping to make the fight and take the fight to the cars ahead as Dan Riley has dropped the DRS.
Yeah, and yeah, so I was watching that time then for Dan Riley. He was in and out, in and out, in and out, and he eventually dropped out of that. So he's got the pace potentially to get back in. He's not miles behind, although Ethan Shackleton is coming up on him fast. But the Aston Martins is interesting then. I'm curious to see if they're going to swap positions at any point. If somebody's going to, if Owen Boldero is going to say, listen, I think I can get him if you let me go. So, can I have a go? Or I'm saying that, Ollie Matthews is probably the closest he's been then all race, so this could be the chance for him. Saying that, Ethan Shackleton then is hunting down Daniel Riley. One interesting thing to note is that Ethan Shackleton and Harrison Robinson are the only two drivers on the hard tyres. So, yeah, as he goes past Daniel Riley then, he will continue then to probably put away as the medium runners then. Looks like Ollie Matthews is going to pull the trigger on the medium stops.
Yeah, it doesn't look like those mediums are lasting very long. So it might be that we're going to go for a two-stop strategy here today. Or it could be the case that it's just not going to be a tyre that lasts particularly long. And then he's going to try and do 21 laps on those tyres. And that's going to be very, very interesting to watch. An undercut on the rest of the field from Ollie Matthews. We'll see how that one pays off. And that splits the field a little bit more. Of course, he was in that fight with Lucas Erracini, with Owen Boldero. He won't be at the moment anymore. The two Haas drivers will be fighting each other. Matthew Gatch's huge send on Alexander Vikol and makes his way through. In the end, nice and easily. It made it look a little bit more scruffy, a little bit more squirmy than it potentially needed to be. But Gatch through in the end, and Alexander Vikol hoping to fight back, but nope, doesn't need to. And Gatch is up into 8th place, staying within the DRS of Brian Moore as well. So for 7th place, these drivers ready to fight it out. Connor hasn't really been able to make the inroads on these drivers, by the way. He is quicker, but not by a surmountable amount. He's just going to remain in behind. And, well, he will try to make his way back within range. But at the moment, he's being a little bit unsuccessful in that attempt.
Yeah, no damage I could confirm then for Connor. I have watched his stream. And the reason I was getting a little bit confused actually earlier on while I was talking about the incident, as Owen Boldero is going to come into the pit lane, is because I'm between his and Brian's stream, because they're the only streams I've got this week with no Alexis and no Bert. I don't have their streams. But his stream timing is as actually Matthew Gatch is in it. It's going to go ahead of Brian Moore then. So those Hasses are slowly coming back on the kick salvers. They don't seem to be doing very well on their tyres, although he now then decides, actually, I've had enough. Let's get into the pits and get off those. Obviously, another medium runner. So, yeah, they were a little bit off-timed. So, yeah, it really kind of confused me as to what we were seeing on stream and what was happening on Connor's screen. But, yeah, I can see from his stream that he has no damage. So, he just seems to lack in pace. But he's obviously gone around again, which has kind of surprised me. I thought he'd pulled the trigger early, but he might be doing a Kyle SW strategy here where he will go long as he can and ensure that he has got the strongest one stop possible. He has got Ollie Matthews on the back of him though, so this will be a formality. Ollie Matthews, of course, is on the fresh hard tyres, and this is going to be a nice easy one on Connor as he goes into the corner there. No problems at all. That all been shown in the bottom left of your screen if you're watching post stream. But yeah, I don't know what's happened to his pace, but hopefully he can fight back later. Of course, a safety car can very well bring him back into it. A safety car now would be fantastic for him. But yeah, the two hard runners then of Ethan Shackleton and Harrison Robinson, they have cycled up to 3rd and 4th. But where are they going to be once they take their stops in? I'm going to assume, let's say, maybe about 7 laps time.
I'd be impressed if he cycled his way up to 4th place, considering the rest of the drivers are in cars, as Lucas Aracini's into the pit lane, and he will be making the switch off of the set of tyres that he had on at the moment, which is, of course, the mediums, and Andrei Chenkovan will be taking his on another lap, and, well, still faster than the rest of the field by a significant margin. Ferrari 1-2, we haven't seen this one enough this season. We saw it a lot last year, but not this season. And, well, Andrei Chenkovan at the moment, of course, leading the way with a huge gap over Ethan Shackleton for that second spot. But, yeah, at the moment, absolutely unbelievable racing from Chenkovan to hold that lead. And unless he makes any mistakes, which he has been prone to recently, then he will be right at the very top of the field for the remainder of this one. We've got Ollie Matthews swapping with Alexander Vickel. We've got the faster drivers swapping through and getting through on the slower drivers, which is just the case that it seems to be at the moment. And Lucas Aracini might be the next one on Dan Riley. I'm not sure where Dan Riley's pace has gone so far this season, but he won't be very happy with the performances so far. And if Lucas Aracini makes his way through, then Dan Riley will be hoping to hang with him. But Luca, with the improvements that he's made, will most likely remain ahead as Alexander loses another position, drops down to 6th place, and has Dan Riley and Lucas Aracini the closest in behind Vickel, trying to stay within range of Owen. But I'm not sure how long he's going to get the chance to be able to do that, as Luca doesn't have the overspeed that I thought he would on Dan Riley, just maybe trying to get those tyres warmed up.
Yeah, they're almost in very different, like, opposite positions to last season. I feel like at this point in the season, last season, Luca was very much struggling and Dan was actually showing some mega pace. And they seem to have just swapped roles this time out. So I'm not sure what's happened there, unless they're using each other's counts. So he's going to go down the inside then, Lucas Aracini. That was a very close call. It looks like Dan chopped him off a little bit. Whether that was fair or not, it was hard to say from that camera angle. But yeah, Luca went for the move on the inside and Dan did not leave a room for him to do so. And he'll have to go again then. But they've also got Alexander Vickel just ahead. So Dan Riley may well get DRS on the next straight, depending on when he gets past Alexander Vickel then. But yeah, Luca is very much looking to get ahead and make sure he's in the right positions once the lead of Andrei Chenkovan and the two hard runners then of Ethan Shackleton and Harrison Robinson do their pit stops, that he will be able to cycle back up onto a podium position. So he's going to have another go here then. That's a very good exit for Lucas Aracini. It looks like he's giving him a little bit of a tap then to say, wait, let me have a go this time. But no, a good overspeed then from Dan Riley. And they get very close. Mid-corner there. Alexander Vickel is going to play a part in this. And he's in the way of Dan Riley. And Lucas Aracini comes off the best there, just by being in the right place at the right time. That was a Frugos Hamilton moment, and I actually really should have said it in the moment, but I missed it. Dan Riley wants to have a go through Cops, but that would be absolute suicide if he did it at that speed. And he goes wide, and so does Alexander Vickel. So Alexander Vickel then does not have to get out of the way. He was not being lapped. He was still fighting for his position. So that was completely fair. But yeah, Dan Riley just coming off the worst there, just being very unlucky.
Yeah, unlucky. And, well, he'll hope to be able to keep that pace up, because at the moment it's not too terrible for Dan Riley. And, well, he's going to try and chase in behind Lucas Aracini, try and pick up the opportunities that he'll be given. He'll be given them very shortly, as, well, we'll tick over to what will be lap number 12 of 26 here today. And our racing so far has been pretty fair, pretty clean. There's not really been any incidents to speak about. The drivers have been nice and clean, which is exactly what we like to hear and see, as well as, well, I mean, nobody's really had an opportunity to fight for the lead, at least. There's been lots of fights for these lower points positions, and I'm sure there'll be more with more drivers diving into the pit lane. But that's exactly the case that we've got at the moment into the pit lane. By the way, Alexander Vickel, who makes the switch from the tyres that he was on, which was going to be the medium compounded tyres, onto a set of the hards. And, well, he will be coming out of the pit lane in what will be last place, but with the opportunity to move up, he's going to try and maximise it. He's really been fighting this race so far, and well, he looks set to continue with, of course, the fight that he had with Brian Moore earlier being pretty feisty.
Yeah, so it obviously shows a lot that he's been able to make them last that long then, but I'm about to say Andrei Chenkovan obviously made him last very long, but he's now going to pits himself. So Andrei Chenkovan is always quite regularly shows what how long he can make tyres last. I'm getting all tongue-tied today, but yeah, he's made him last then to the end of lap 11, so he'd be very, very pleased with that, I'm sure, and he's going to have the strongest tyres to the end then. Of course, there's two runners that still need to go on to some fresh mediums at some point. We assume it's going to be mediums and not the softs. I think softs would be a crazy call Dan Riley, one thing we didn't pick up, we got a 10-second penalty for speed in the pit lane, so that's going to ruin his race. And now Lucas Erosini is going to obviously be seeing Andrew Chenkovan then, and hoping that his battle has not messed him up too much, and he's not going to get ahead of Andrew Chenkovan then. So that battle with Dan Riley then, this is what I was saying at the time, them battling each other has meant that they both will not get ahead of Andrew Chenkovan at that stop, and now Andrew Chenkovan is free to take the Aston Martins, it was the only two cars that are now ahead of him, take them on track, and then he's back into the effective race lead. So sometimes you just got to think a little bit more about the bigger picture and whether battling's the right thing to do. But they're both to blame for that. You know, not one driver's to blame. I think probably more on Luca. But I think Luca had the better pace, so he was obviously desperate to get past. So you can't blame him for wanting to do so. But yeah, that is unfortunate, because I feel like they could have both got ahead of Andrew Chenkovan. Yes, Andrew Chenkovan may well have cycled back to the win. You know, we can't put it past him, but it would have made his job just slightly harder and just given Dan Riley and Lucas Erosini at least a small chance at the win, provided Andrew Chenkovan doesn't make a mistake. But as he now goes past then, Owen Boldero, that's a nice easy one on those fresh tyres. He'll be looking to hunt down Owen Boldero's teammate Ollie Matthews, and then he'll just be cruising in third position until the hard runners stop. So the only thing that can really mess him up now would be a safety car.
I'm surprised Owen didn't try and fight him more than he did. I mean, he didn't really have the opportunity to, but I'm surprised that Owen didn't, have a move to the inside, have some sort of defensive manoeuvre. He just let him go. That doesn't feel like an Owen Boldero move at all. He feels like he's going to fight those positions a little bit more, especially when they are earned. And, he was, I'd imagine, going to try and make Andrea Chenkovan earn it. But with the way that Andrea's hit flow state today, I don't think that, after all that, I don't think it would have been a possible option for himself. And, he will stay in behind for the time being. The drivers are going to be all filtering through similar positions for this sort of group of drivers. Ollie Matthews leading Chenkovan, leading Owen Boldero, leading Lucas Erosini. Dan Riley's a little bit off the pack, and I think Harrison Robinson's a little bit too far ahead for anybody to be able to chase. But it's been very interesting to watch this one develop as this race has gone on, and this overall group develop and starts to come into fruition across the course of this race, just because, it's a interesting group, interesting bunch of drivers that we don't usually see on the same stretch of road, although they are similar paces. Through goes Andrea Chenkovan and Ollie Matthews. He's made it very boring. He's not gone for any big lunges. He's just made his way through smartly and up into now what will be third place, and sets his sights on the two drivers who haven't come into the pits just yet.
But a lot of drivers run wide on the exit of that corner there in the third sector. Now, you've got to be really careful because you don't want to start picking up penalties. Of course, Dan Riley currently on 16 seconds worth of penalties. 10 seconds could be served in the pits if there's something like a safety car. But, I said that. And Brian Moore then got a 3-second penalty there. On to Brian Moore. So, interesting a little bit of news with Brian Moore. He is on a 2-stop nailed on. So he's done 2 sets of medium tyres. Now, the weird part about it is this second set of medium tyres, he's been probably one of the slowest on track. We saw his pace in the first stint. He seemed faster than his teammate and the Hasses. But ever since he's gone on to this second set of mediums, he's just fallen further and further back. And Lucas Erosini then is going to go past then Owen Boldero. So Lucas Erosini cycling back up, not literally, to the podium positions. But yeah, with Brian Moore, I'm not quite sure where his pace has gone. He's just dropped off. His teammate went past him on the last lap quite convincingly. So yeah, he's not quite pulled it off, and this 2-stop means he's going to be even further back off the back, and that means Alexander Vickel is basically getting a free position then. So yeah, it's a very strange drop-off for Brian Moore, and obviously the 3-second penalty is not going to help. Lucas Erosini then looks like he's going to start running away with not running away in the race, running away from Owen Boldero, and then he's going to hunt down his teammate and have another person who's going to have a go at Ollie Matthews. So Ollie Matthews' win here is not looking quite as nailed on as I was hoping, but anything can happen, so we will wait and see. Andrea Chenkovan then ahead of Harrison Robinson, so he's got the fastest lap there as well for 1:28.6, so he's ahead even before the pit stop phase. So that is, it's pretty much done and dusted unless anything happens. His teammate's the next person up the road, 8 seconds up the road, so actually Ethan Shackleton is doing a great job on those hard tyres, and he'll be hoping to not drop too far back when he finally pulls the trigger and goes into the pits himself.
Yeah, that's the plan at the very least, and just a little bit more information on the retirement of Regan. He did so. I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but he did so because he just sort of switched his camera angle every single time that he tried to gear up, which is of course a frustrating issue, and unfortunate that Regan had to call it so early because of that, and that was him out of the race. The driver who will be classified last in this one, and that's why he called it quits at the end of lap 1. Didn't seem to really give too much of a fight in this field, and that is the reason why. At lap 15 of 26, and Owen Boldero is going to be trying to chase in behind Lucas Erracini at this point in time. They just keep being close to each other. Owen Boldero hoping for that 5th place, but of course he won't. I think he'd rather here finish 6th place than he would 5th, because then that would break the streak. And well, we will of course see what he's going to be capable of doing come the end of the race. But as it stands, he's very on to be taking a position in and around there, and in fact his tyres are slightly worse than Lucas Erracini's, as into the pits comes Harrison Robinson finally, and you can see the timing board having a little bit of a moment, because of course the pit lane is in a very interesting place, and well, we've seen a couple of very interesting things happen in races potentially that have had a few more eyes on them than APC, particularly Jarno Otmir in PSGL relatively recently. Now, it might make me feel old if we say that it's not relatively recently. It was like 8 months ago, something like that. Anyway, not the point, because we do have Lucas Erracini in that 4th spot at this point in time, and Owen Boldero, who also dived into the pit lane, and well, he will not be chasing in anymore, because he'll try and make these tyres last the entire final stint. That'll be 10 laps that he will be taking those hard compound tyres onto. Those previous ones did 8, so I think his tyre wear's a little bit worse than average, and I think he'll tell us all about it in the interview room afterwards.
I'm sure he will. There's one person we can guarantee will be here. He will be Owen Boldero. But Dan Riley then also in the pits, puts him down in 10th position. Brian Moore again in the pits. We knew Brian Moore definitely was going to come into the pits again. Curious to know actually what tyres he's put on. We've got him on the replay camera. Let's see what he's going to come up with. He's on the hard, so yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the mediums could go to the end from here. Obviously, he didn't have much of a choice, but yeah, he nailed that on. So yeah, a lot of pit stops happening there. I'd be curious to see who's doing the one stop. Definitely not going to be Ollie Matthews then. He's definitely not doing the one stop. He is stopping again. So we have to wait and see what Lucas Erracini is going to do. We know Andrew Chenkovan is probably 90% definitely going to do the one stop, because he managed to make their medium tyres go all the way to the end of lap 11. Still nothing from Ethan Shackleton then. So Harrison has done it, and he's actually going ahead of Matthew Gatches now then. But Ethan Shackleton still going on those hard tyres. I guess he'd love a safety car right now. That would sort him right out. But yeah, can Luca make him last? I mean, I'm waiting to see. But with Regan then, I'm pretty confident he used that excuse 2 or 3 races ago. This reminds me of Owen Boldero last season when he constantly had mic issues. You'd think you'd just try and do something to sort that out. But what do I know, eh? But yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with Regan's technology, his hardware. Something he should probably potentially have a look at, because we want to see more of Regan. Regan's a good driver. We'd like to see him on track, and we want to see more of him. So Regan, if you're listening, if you are watching, get your tech sorted, mate. Get your tech sorted. But back to the track action then. It's Ollie Matthews then, back into 4th position. He's obviously fighting with Harrison Robinson. They're both on the similar tyres, aren't they? So not actually sure what compound Ollie's on as he comes past the camera there. But yeah, they're both on fresh. So no one's got old tyres there. They're both on very fresh tyres. So this is all very much for position. And it looks like, again, we have got a nice gaggle of cars here where we can't call who's going to finish where, although Matthew Gatchis runs wide there. So he needs to be careful if he's going to hold on to this train. Ethan Shackleton then is going to come off those hard tyres. He's the last person to pit, unless we see Lucas Erracini pit. But he is the last guaranteed pit stop of this race. So yeah, now we're going to see what happens from here. And Dan Riley again, down at the bottom there. It's just, we're just not sure what's happened to his pace this season. It's so different to the Dan Riley we knew in season 9.
Yeah, unfortunate for Dan Riley, particularly at this point in the season. And hopefully he'll be able to pick it up come the end. When you hit a bad run of form, it does seem to get worse for yourself before it can get better, and he'll be hoping that it'll be getting better very soon. Owen Boldero on the back of Harrison Robinson, trying to make his way through. Of course, they've both got the same wear of tyre, but with the medium runner being ahead, he's going to be trying to defend on what will be at the moment the better tyres, as that will be another 3 second for Dan Riley, really struggling around this Silverstone circuit. And I think he's got to take a couple of weeks to make his way back into form, as Boldero through on Robinson sets his sights on his teammate once again. It's been interesting to watch the teammate dynamic so far this season, especially with the way that Paul Gurung has dropped down to reserve, and we've seen Owen Boldero as a part of a team with Ollie Matthews, as Dan Riley appears to just really be struggling with something in this race at the very least. But it has been interesting to watch, as well, of course, as you say, we'll watch the replay at the end of the race of what's happened exactly to Daniel Riley as he tries to remain ahead of Alexander Vickel for that 9th place. Vickel, who's on for his first points of the season, that'll be a very good result for him that he can pick up and he can try to take the momentum from. But yeah, the Aston Martin dynamic has been an interesting one to watch, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing them working together once again. We don't really have many drivers working together as teams, it doesn't seem, so far throughout the course of this season, so it's nice to be getting one outfit that we know is giving it a go to work together.
Yeah, it's not something we've seen a lot of in APC, which is quite unfortunate. I've always tried to do it myself, but yeah, but this season we've got I can obviously see from the Discord server, we've got the Kick Salvers and the Aston Martins, and they both use their team radio channels, and they're both in a live discussion with each other, so that's good. We'd love to see that. I think the Hasses, I think they speak beforehand, but they don't converse during the race. Lucas Orsini then did have to pull the trigger, then he did stop. He's going to start making his way back up then. But one thing to note, which I've missed, and I think we've all missed, is Ethan Shackleton's strategy then has meant that they are currently running in 1-2, and that is for position. They've both stopped, so that's mega from Ethan Shackleton. He did exactly what he needed to do on those hard tyres, stopped at the right time, and is ahead of both the Aston Martins then. So that's going to be very unfortunate for the Aston Martins. As you say, they're working very well together. They're obviously a big contender for the team's championship. Of course, Alexis Mason filled in for Ethan Shackleton last week and won. So that's quite unfortunate on the week where Chenky also had issues. That would have been a great week for Aston to start putting ahead a little bit. But unfortunately, we're not able to capitalise due to Alexis being available as a reserve here in APC. So, yeah, and again, they're going to be outbeaten here again. So if they're going to mount the charge for the team championship, they're going to hope that they can start getting in the mix with the Ferraris a lot more often than the one-off race we saw last time out. Of course, a sprint here next week. So another opportunity is a reverse grid sprint. So that means Andrew Jenkovan will be starting last then. So, yeah, opportunity there. Dan Riley then, you would have seen the replay if you are watching on the edited version of the stream. Tried a move then on Alexander Vickel, missed the corner, went over the completely cut the corner entirely, got an illegal overtake, didn't give it back, and just carried on. So what he's hoping now, with his 32 seconds worth of penalties, that he's going to be able to just run away and build a big enough gap to stay ahead. Connor Stewart then is going to pit, so he's more than likely going to be the last person to pit. So not able to make a one-stop work. He did push his first set of mediums to try and make the one-stop work, but he's not going to be able to make it work. And he is now going to push to try and catch Alexander Vickel himself. Connor has no penalties at the moment. His teammate behind has 3 seconds, so he will probably not try and fight him if he does catch him, but we've not seen great pace from Brian Moore so far in his second and third stint anyway. So yeah, that's the state of play at the moment. It's whether those Astons can work together to hunt down Ethan. But as it currently stands, Ethan on the medium tyres then is a lot faster than Ollie Matthews, and they are not going to get anywhere near him unless they pull something out of the bag very soon.
Yeah, they're not. It's a very good strategy from Ethan there to get himself up to that second spot. And, well, 26 seconds off of his teammate, so Jenkovan could realistically go for a glory run for fastest lap. Of course, it wouldn't be for points, it would just be for glory. And, well, it's something that he has done on a couple of occasions before. He may well be doing it again today. We'll have to wait and see. He's certainly got license to after the pace that he's shown throughout the course of this race. It's been very, very, very impressive from the Ferrari, and well, we will see come the end of the race what he does decide to do, what strategy he does decide to go on. But he does have license to do it, and he does have his teammate behind him as a buffer, and there is no way he's going to come out behind the likes of Ollie Matthews. And, well, we will see where he does end up in this race. Of course, first place will be where he ends up unless he makes a mistake, which I don't think at this point he will be doing, but it would just be down to what he can do in terms of if he does decide to go for a glory run, or if he does just decide to go to the end nice and cleanly. That will be based on the confidence that he feels in this race. And I mean, the confidence will be at an all-time high, taking this likely victory away. And I don't want to I don't want to say taking the victory away, because I'm going to jinx him. He's going to crash within a lap if I do say that. So everything that I'm saying is hypothetical, but Andrei Chenkovan is looking very, very, very strong in this race. And, well, it's the Ferraris throughout the course of the season, isn't it, that just look so very strong, and it's unlikely that they're going to be surmounted now, as surely Dan Riley is getting close to disqualification.
It's a weird one, this game, as Matthew Gatch is pulled into the pit lane then for another stop. It's a weird one, this game. So with track limits penalties, I think it's 24 seconds or 27 seconds and you get a disqualification. It's not the same with the 10-second penalties. Well, it's definitely not the same with the speed in the pit lane penalties. They don't count as far as I'm aware. Whether the 10-second penalty for, I guess, yeah, for actually taking the position off the track would probably count towards that as well. So he's probably is very close then. So he currently actually don't know his current penalty. I think he's going to be 35 seconds. If we remove one of those 10-second penalties, yeah, I think he's going to definitely be very close. And that's not what we want to see then. We don't want to see disqualifications in ABC, but he's got 5 laps to try and keep it on track if he can. But I think he's probably just driving angry at this point. I really wish he still streamed. I'd love to see like what his emotions are right now and to see, you know, what's going on there. But yeah, he's obviously driving angry and just not really concentrating because of kind of the position he's in. But he is currently in 7th place then. The Hasses are obviously on better tyres and may well come back at him. Well, actually, they don't really need to, do they, with that penalty situation? But yeah, he needs to kind of regroup himself a little bit, just see what he can make of this race. But yeah, with those penalties, it's probably going to be nothing. The Aston Martins then are still running together. I think it's too early to say that the Ferraris have it for the season, for sure. I think Aston, they are a really good pairing. And we've seen Ethan Shackleton struggle so far this season. This is his first time on the podium this season. This is probably the first time, I think, in like the top 6. So it's a great showing from Ethan Shackleton. But he's not prone to having bad races. So the Astons can very much still take the championship. And we're hoping they're going to take it at least right to the very last race, so we have something to look out for. But yeah, this is a very dominant showing from the two of them here, and yeah, they're running away again though. Very Noah's Ark. Have you actually noticed? In fact, Connor's just gone and ruined it by taking Alexandre Vickel there, which you would have seen on the replay cameras. But yes, until that happened, every teammate was side by side except obviously for the people who don't have their teammates here. Bert Welly, no idea what happened to him this week. He just didn't show up. Regan then has a DNF on the first lap because his tech is still hates him for some reason. And then Aria Stone wasn't able to attend this week. Hasn't told us why, but just that he's under no obligation to tell us why. It's none of our business. But yeah, and Alexis Mason should have been here to fill in for Aria Stone, but also didn't show up last minute. So yeah, it's been an interesting one for Ferrari. It's obviously 3 laps to go now, and no one's really hustled them, have they?
No, Andrei Chenkovan broke away at the start of the race. I think it was literally within 2 laps he was able to be free of the DRS and was breaking away from. It was Luca Saraceni at the time in that second place. Luca, who I think will be slightly disappointed with the way that his race has gone. Of course, qualifying well, he would have been on with high hopes. But with the gap that he had to Chenkovan, it was only a matter of time before DRS would take a victim. And a victim he has become in this race, of course, of said DRS. Because as soon as you drop it, you get dropped as well. You absolutely get dropped, and they will absolutely fly away as a result. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but that is the way that it is. It's a learning experience for Luca. Everything at this point in the season is a learning experience for Luca because of how raw he came into the season. He came in with a lot of pace, but he came in with a lot of raw ability. But it's just about harnessing it, and he's done it a couple of times this year. He's been very impressive, as I say. He is probably my most improved driver of the season. And, well, he's just going to try and continue that momentum on and hopefully be up with the top drivers in terms of pace at the end of the season. It will always be good to see Luca right at the very top of the field, just because we know how hard he's worked behind the scenes and during the off-season on this, on the way that he set himself up for races, on the way that he tried to set himself up for going no assists. His work ethic is very commendable, and it's just a matter of time as to whether he gets to the likes of Andrei Chenkovan's pace. If he keeps going at this momentum, he will be getting there at some point soon. But yeah, we'll tick over to what will be the penultimate lap of the race. Chenkovan's in the final sector as we're watching on with a fight for third in the first, and that is just a demonstration of the pace that Chenkovan has. Or he's not quite in the final sector, he will be into it shortly, and then we'll be heading on to the last lap. And, well, surprisingly, only one driver lapped today, as Dan Riley looks like he's about to chase fastest lap.
Yeah, it's unfortunate then for Lucas Ericini, because he had the pace today to be on that podium for sure. He was running ahead of those Aston Martins, but that battling with Dan Riley definitely didn't help then. He questioned as to whether he should have battled, maybe waited until the pit stop phase for Andrei Chenkovan, or if he should have actually maybe pitted a little bit earlier. His pit stop were later than everybody else's. So maybe that's something that's potentially put him further back than he probably deserves to be. So unfortunately, he was looking then. He did join us speak to us before the race, and he was looking for P4 today. So that is unfortunate that he's not able to get that. And I tell you what, it's actually Owen Baldero who normally occupies that 5th position. So if those roles were swapped, they'd both be probably very happy with that. But as it currently stands, Owen Baldero is on for the best result of the season for him, and he'll be hoping to then continue that trajectory. Ollie Matthews then isn't continuing that trajectory. He's gone down 1 position from last week. He's obviously in 3rd position. I'm keeping an eye on where that Ferrari is, I can see him. He is in 3rd position and not the 1st position spot that he was hoping for. But yeah, look, I think it's a great race. I mean, the Aston Martins, you have to wonder if their pace is so similar that it would have been 3rd and 4th no matter what way round it was, or if Owen was ahead, could he have maybe had better pace and hunted down Ethan Shackleton? They have both been hunting him down over the last few laps, but there were not enough laps, unfortunately, on the track, on the race, to actually help them get there. So this is probably going to be the finishing order, I imagine, as Andrei Chenkovan then is in the final sector.
Yeah, we don't do if buts and maybes, we do absolutes, and what is absolutely true is that Andrei Chenkovan is the quickest driver in this series. He's demonstrated it once again today, and he will come home and extend his championship lead. Andrei Chenkovan is victorious here in Britain in sensational style, 26 seconds ahead of the next available driver. That will be his teammate Ethan Shackleton. We saw this a lot last season. We've not seen it so much this season, but Shackleton, with a return to form and with a return to the podium in 2nd place, he will be taking 2nd place home, as I say, and it's not too bad of a performance from himself as well. A promising sign of things to come and a scary sign for the rest of the grid. Ollie Matthews comes home in 3rd, just ahead of his teammate Owen Baldero in 4th, and then it'll be Lucas Ericini who will come home in what will be a disappointing 5th place, but what he has to remember is that he's got higher expectations than he did last year. Harrison Robinson will finish in 6th spot, and not too bad performances from him once again, just consistently trying to keep himself within it, and if there's drivers that have mistakes, he will be able to capitalise. Then Matthew Gatchers coming home in 7th place. We've got Brian Moore and Dan Riley, who've both been lapped, and then we'll be having Connor Stewart Woodard and Alexander Vickel, our final finisher here today. But yeah, it's been a very, very intriguing race indeed strategically, and that is exactly why we've seen the 2 Ferraris on the podium positions, with an overcut from Ethan Shackleton starting on the hard compound of tyres. It worked for Harrison Robinson, and it worked for Shackleton as well. So if this features in the next season, then that is something to remember for the drivers. But that will be it for the racing action here at Silverstone. And, well, that was a very, very good performance indeed from the likes of Andrei Chenkovan, Ethan Shackleton, and, well, Ollie Matthews, who will round out that podium, the top 3, with very, very good performances, all things considered. And, well, that's not too bad. Very different strategies. So Andrew Chengfan went for the one stop, went for the boring, went for what I predicted at the start of the race, which is medium compound tyre over to hards. Then Shackleton went for the opposite. He went for the hards, then swapped to the medium compound tyre. That will be for second place. That will be a 17-lap stint on those hards, so an incredible management job. Third place for Ollie Matthews, who went for a two-stop from the mediums to the hards and then over to the hards again. But we will get the opportunity to speak to the man who ended up in that second spot. Ethan, I mean, it's a very good performance from yourself for the first podium of the season. How did you find that British Grand Prix?
Oh, it felt so good to be back after some. I missed last week, and then I DNF the week before. Oh, it feels so good to get some decent points on the board for once. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, it certainly looked like good fun to be able to take that position. And, well, I mean, of course, you went for a different strategy to what most people did. You started on the hards. What was the thinking there?
Well, in practicing, I thought the one stop was quicker, and I didn't get much time to actually practice. But I remember that from last year. So I'm very surprised that there wasn't many more doing the one stop. My thinking of the hards was to do something different to everyone else to jump them. However, thinking that they were going to go one stop medium to hards.
Yeah, and then what was the thought process when you saw everybody was actually in fact out on of course either the two-stop strategy or just like yourself, Harrison Robinson, who ends up going for the same as you?
Yeah, when I saw, I think it was Ollie pit around like lap 6, I was like, wow, he's gonna really struggle to make that work. And then yeah, I obviously was checking how much tire wear I had. I was like, yeah, he's not gonna make that. And then the smiles growing bigger on my face, knowing that they've got to pit again.
Yeah, and then it was noted how big of an overcut even that you were able to get. It was very, very, very good for yourself. Carl, have you got anything for Ethan before we let him go and celebrate his first podium of the season?
Yeah, I think this is the first opportunity I've had to interview you, isn't it, Ethan? So lovely to speak to you. It's a great
Yeah.
result. Well, I think fantastic. I mean, we kind of didn't really realize what you had done quite early on. We were just like let you do your thing, and then you stopped, and it was like, hold on, he's up there in second position. So obviously the strategy call was fantastic. I think that was a big reason you managed to gain so many positions. But was there anything else you'd done? Obviously, in the meantime, obviously you weren't here last week. Is there anything you've done sort of during the 2 weeks since you were last racing to actually improve on your actual pace, or was it just down to strategy today?
No, I actually think my pace was not amazing today. I think it was mostly the strategy and the thinking behind it that definitely got me the positions today. I think on pure pace, I'd probably be about P4.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic job either way. I mean, 1-2 then. So that's the yeah. I think that's your first time on a podium. So well done. Welcome back to the podium. It's good to see your pace again, and hopefully next week or
Yeah,
go forward for the
thank you.
season, we'll see you up there a bit more. But thanks for jumping into the booth and talking to us as well.
No problem. Thank you. See ya.
That's, of course, our podium sitter of, well, of course, that's Ethan Shackleton, and he was joined on the podium by a couple more drivers. Another one will be able to join us now, and it'll be Ollie Matthews, who we're going to drag into the box against his will. Ollie, I mean, it was an interesting race indeed strategically. You were the top of the two stoppers. You came in earlier than everybody else. How would you debrief that race?
It was very mentally taxing, I'd say. Me and Owen were in comps together, working very tightly together because we seem to be around the same pace, which is really good. But I knew the undercut was strong around here. I wanted to see what my tire wear was like to see if I could make the one stop work. A little too high for my liking, so I thought I'm going to commit to an early stop. I think I was the first one to box and just completely flat out push the hards. And yeah, I think it could have been P2, but Shaq's strat was just out of this world.
Yeah, it seemed to be that he was able to extract a lot more out of the hard compound tyres than anybody else was able to. But Ethan Shackleton, another new contender up at the top. Of course, he will be racing for the Ferrari team. You're going to be in the Aston Martins. How difficult is that one to swallow when you know you've got another championship contender?
I don't think it's crazy because he has had quite a poor start to the season and said that he does love Silverstone. So I'm hoping that it will be a one-off. It may not be, and I'll just take each race week by week, and I think the order will. There will be some similarities. I think Shenku will always be a front runner. Me and Owen seem to be kind of that third to sixth region consistently, which is great for the team championship, but annoying when the people ahead of you are both Ferrari drivers, which has happened 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, it certainly can be annoying as well for that to happen. And of course, we've got a lot of races to go in the season. And the next one up will, of course, be, if I can find the calendar somewhere because I've lost it.
Belgium.
If in the meantime, it will, of course, be Belgium, as you say, first sprint race of the year. How are you feeling about that one, and particularly the sprint race format?
It means that I can't have my dinner beforehand, which may be a bit annoying because I finished off at 7 and half an hour is not quick enough to cook food. So I'm just gonna turn up and pray sprint as a bit of practice and main points in the race.
Pot noodles and vibes for you next week then. Kyle, have you got any questions for Ollie before we let him go?
Well, firstly, Ollie, you let me down because I obviously had your back for the win today, so I'm very upset about that. You've gone backwards, so yeah, not very pleased. But I guess the question is, how's the marriage at the moment with your teammate Owen Boldera? How's that going? Because obviously you're in a chat together. I know you share information, and you're always running on track together. You just can't leave each other alone. Was there ever a discussion, especially in that last stint, about swapping positions and maybe seeing if he could have a go, or were you both in agreement that this is the best you were going to get and just hold position? Was there what color would you call that? Green rules.
We did mention, okay, if because Luke was quite a bit further back than us, and I think he had a mistake that brought him further back, and I was catching Shaq a little, but not enough clearly. And we were like, okay, if I'm not catching Shaq enough, we will have a fair fight. We're not going to willingly swap positions because we're not McLaren. And I had better tyres than him, even though he boxed 1 lap earlier, and he was pushing the hell out to get past the Williams on the mediums, and I was in clean air for a lot of that race, and we just thought he just couldn't catch me at the end. I think I got over a second ahead of him on that last lap.
Yeah, I think you did eke it out on the last lap there. So yeah, I don't know, but it could be a dirty air. Could have destroyed his tyres. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I feel like you two seem to be working very well together, which is probably good given that you're running together on track. Because I think if you're always side by side, but yet you couldn't work out who's doing what and who's going to be ahead of who, that could make things very awkward, as we did actually see from some other teammates out there today. So, but otherwise, another podium then. So good job, and I'm sure you'll keep it up for us. And the win's incoming soon, right?
We'll see. By this logic, I've gone fourth, third, second, third. So next week, I'm probably going to come fourth, and just bounce back between the 3 positions.
Sounds about right, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to that. But thanks as always for joining us. It's always lovely to speak to you, and we'll catch you then.
See you next week.
Yeah, of course, that was the man that sat on the podium, as well as Shackleton and Chenkovan here today, Ollie Matthews. And, we'll take a trip a little bit further down the order for this one, and we'll take a trip specifically to, we're going to go down to Brian Moore, who, of course, had a different experience to the rest of the drivers in this interview box today. We'll speak to Lucas Aracini a little bit later. But, Brian, I mean, how was that race for yourself?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, yeah, it wasn't too bad.
That's fair enough. I mean, you weren't particularly positive about Silverstone, if I remember correctly. So the fact that it wasn't too bad is not too bad, I'm guessing.
No, I wasn't too positive. I thought I was going to do it. I honestly thought I was going to find a wall with a puncture. That was my thought process going into the race, but to score a point, not points, it's a point. Yeah, no, it went well in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, in comparison to expectations, of course, is always the way that you want to be. I mean, of course, the tie wear, as you mentioned, was a big factor here today with everyone going on different strategies. How and when did you decide yours?
30 seconds before the race. I kind of just put multiple strategies on a wheel and spun it to make the decision. If I'm being honest, that was my thought process for the strategy decisions today.
Well, each to their own, each to their own. And, well, I mean, it didn't work out too badly for yourself. You went on to the two-stop in the end, switching from the mediums to the mediums and then over to the hards at the end of the race. Was there any significant differences between the two sets?
I think mediums first and mediums they had better pace. Second stint they were sort of there, but the hards to me, I mean I've said this on this game a lot, like not in interviews but just to people in general. The hards for me personally on controller feel so much nicer this game than the mediums, but the mediums didn't feel too bad for a change here today.
Yeah, fair enough. Have we got anything, Kyle, for Owen before we let him go?
It's definitely
Not
Brian and
Owen.
not Owen. But
It's definitely not Owen, is it?
I
I'm
feel
not as
like
old as Owen yet.
the length of the answers are very different between the two of them. Let's be fair. But Brian, so put all the strategies on the wheel and spun the wheel. I mean, that probably explains how you ended up in 10th then. But you were the only person who did a double medium. So I think everyone else was. I think it's like a medium hard medium or medium hard hard. So I don't know if this is a fair observation. This is from what I've seen. From when I was on your board reviewer quite a bit. I think I use your stream from time to time. You seem to struggle a lot more on the mediums on the second stint than you did on the first. And the first stint you were fighting with the Hasses with your teammate. On the second stint, you just didn't seem to have the pace. Like what happened between the two stints that just made you struggle more on that second stint?
I'm going to be brutally honest. I haven't got a clue. If I had to come up with a reason, I'll just say the music I was listening to. That's a terrible reason. No, I don't know what happened there. The second stint, I just didn't feel as comfortable on the medium, so I just wanted to get them off. But I was sticking with the strategy I had. I wanted to just stick with what I had and just get to the end, finish a race. I mean, Radiohead. I can't remember what his name is. I sort of had my eyes set on him at one point, and then when I got the first penalty, I just kind of maybe I have a chance, maybe I don't. Then when I realised I went for the one stop, I was kind of I'm just going to sit back and hope something happens to someone for points.
Yeah, for sure. We've had this discussion before. It's not something we're going to get into now. But I don't know how you listen to music while you drive. I struggle. I have to when I drive. I have to lock into what's going on that screen. Nothing else. Like headset on. Forget the whole world's even around me. So like lights off, everything. So but that's just me. I think Owen sometimes does the same thing. So I'm obviously it's not just something you do. But yeah, great race done nonetheless. Obviously you finished in the points there with Dan Riley's big struggles then. So not quite sure what happened there. And we saw you fighting with Alexander Vickel, and you had some incidents, but you both seem to come out of it okay. So hopefully, everyone's happy and everyone's going to leave that one happy with what they've got. But yeah, thanks for your time as always, Brian, not Owen. And we'll catch you next week, hopefully, for the sprint in Belgium.
Yeah, thank you.
Brian Boldero there, who ended up just about inside of the points. And, we're going to go from him to the actual man called Owen, and it will be Owen Boldero joining us in the box. I mean, it was a very interesting race from yourself, indeed. It was a very interesting race overall, strategically. Very well worked with your teammate, it seemed to be, from our perspective. How was it from your end?
Considering I was complaining to Kyle in voice messages about how much I hate this track in this game, I'll take a P4. As I've said, P4, P5 seems to be just my resting place in APC. I can't seem to escape it. But honestly, considering what I was expecting going into this race, I will take it. So qualifying was a disaster. I had zero pace in qualifying. I couldn't put a good lap in. And that's why I started P6. And then I got probably the most insane race start I have ever got. Before even we hit the first braking zone, I was past Ethan and past Dan as well. Just wasn't expecting it. I jokingly said to Ollie on the formation lap, "Watch this, I've got Dan's phone number on this race start." And then it happened. It was like, whoa, that's a good start. But then after that, it was just about working with Ollie in the first stint. We were wary of in the first couple of laps, Andrea and Luca were gone, but then Luca sort of fell away, and from there it was just sort of like, we can get a double podium here, not knowing what was going to happen a bit later. But then Ollie was saying to me, what do you think about pitting early? So he went early. I followed the lap after. We got a really good undercut on. Was it Luca? Yeah, Luca. We got a really good undercut on him, and then the mid stint was just about staying ahead, keeping it clean. And then the final stint, I went early. I went lap 15 to try and keep the undercut on Luca, which worked. We weren't expecting him to stay out so long, but can I just say, fair play to Ethan, because that was a genius strategy from him. Hards to mediums. I didn't think it was going to be very quick, but it did turn out to be quick. So fair play to him. But considering what I was expecting going into this race and how much I hate this driving this track on the game, I'll take P4. But I would like to get a podium soon.
Yeah, not quite Brian Moore's spin wheel worth of a strategy from Ethan. He's got quite a few plaudits from a number of drivers. Of course, it was close between yourself and your teammate, and I think it always comes down to a debate of who ends up taking that podium, who ends up deserving it. Was it just a case of between you two who was going to be ahead in the end, or was it just a case of, well, I'll just, we'll let Ollie go because Ollie was the quicker, Ollie was the one who decided the strategy?
So there was never a discussion about swapping as such. I said to him about lap 22, if I'm close on the final lap, what are your thoughts on us having a respectful teammate battle for the podium? And he was like, yeah, that's fine, as long as it's respectful. And he said he was expecting me to ask to swap. But I was like, swapping was never in my mind, because at the end of the day, he was the one that was P3. He was in qualifying the one that was faster. And generally throughout the race, probably 99% of the time, he was the one ahead. So swapping was never an option for me. But I said, look, if we're close on the final lap, we'll have a little battle. But in the end, that didn't transpire. I wasn't close enough. My tyres just fell off in the final lap, so that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's all from me. Carl, have you got anything?
Yeah, so obviously you fell back towards the end there, so you weren't able to have that battle. But do you feel that could have just been down to running his dirty air? Because obviously you were within his DRS range for that entire stint until that point you fell away. Do you think if you were ahead and your strategy had meant that you'd come out ahead of him, that you could have kept the position ahead of your teammate and then potentially gone for that podium position?
Maybe, but yeah, as I said, Ollie was the one that was ahead the entire time. I was the one that asked him to drop back like a couple of tenths to give me DRS, because we were really close to dropping Harrison out so many times. And I said to him, if you give me DRS for a few laps, we can get rid of him. And then it just turned out when he was full pushing that I was just sort of staying there. So I just stayed there, and as I said, the thought of the podium crossed my mind in the final few laps, but then it just didn't happen. So yeah.
Yeah, well, good running nonetheless. So good result. Not a fifth position. It's the fourth this time out. So well done, and look forward to catching you next week for the sprint in Belgium.
Thank you. See you guys later.
That was Owen Boldero, who ended up in fourth place with his teammate, and we've made him wait long enough. We'll allow him to join the books now. It's Lucas Aracini, who had an up and down day, but I mean, from your perspective, Luca, how was that one?
Not good, to be honest. My quality was really good, but I was gonna try to do a one stop, but then Ollie and Owen pit really early, so I kind of just copied them. But they had too hard for the end of the race, and I had a medium, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, fair enough. The strategy was was very interesting today. I mean, you were the highest up runner to do the medium, hard, medium. Everyone else up further ahead of you did 2 sets of the hards and 1 set of the mediums. Just tell me, what was the difference between the two?
The mediums just went off miles quicker. Like, I think I was getting like 10% a lap on my front left, and I wasn't even pushing that hard. But then the hard, I could have maybe done a one stop, but Ollie was putting like 2 seconds on my lap, so I kind of just had to come in and try the mediums, but it just didn't work either.
It's always worth trying. And then, of course, we had Ethan Shackleton with the strategy that he had. Just what was the feeling behind that when we noticed that he was only going to do a one stop and it was going to work?
No idea how he's done that, to be honest. Like, I don't know how he's so good on his tires. Like, I was managing so much on my mediums and then my hards for the second stint, and like, it wasn't bad, but I don't think they would have gone to the end. And he was saying in the chat that they were still pretty comfortable by the end.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he managed them very, very well. And well, it's good to get you in the box actually for the first time, I believe, this season. Just, I mean, you seem to be the most. I mentioned it a couple of times in the broadcast. You seem to be the most improved driver of all throughout the course of this season. How have you done it?
I have turned most of the assists off. I'm running ABS off, and then like full traction control and like the automatic gearbox. But I haven't actually done like anything specific. I just got a bit better of a setup and kind of just practiced a little bit, and like the setup made such a difference, even if I didn't think it was that different to what I've been used to be using.
That's fair enough. Carl, have you got anything for Luca before we let him go?
Yeah, well, it's lovely to finally have you in the box, as Joseph said. With not a clue what you sound like, but now we know. Hopefully, we'll get you in a bit more. But if I remember correctly, and do tell me if I've misremembered this, I think on your strategy, you were always one of the last ones to stop. I think you obviously stopped after everybody else, rather than trying to get in ahead of them. You'd try and make your tires run longer. Do you think that played a big part in why you didn't end up on the podium today?
Yeah, I think the only reason I was staying ahead of everyone, like in the first stint when there was like I think 4 of them behind me, is because I was running. I don't know if Ollie actually did it, but he said he was going to run like Monza wings. So like through Maggots and Beckett's into the final little straight bit, I was like pulling a load of time and I was managing to stay ahead. But then because I got behind him, I just couldn't like re-overtake anyone. So I got back up to Dan. Took me like a few laps to overtake him. Yeah, we had a bit of a collision, which I don't want to comment on, but and then once I eventually got past him, I tried to catch back up, and then basically as I got back up to them, they all pit again. I tried to stay out for a bit longer, see if I can make the one stop work. It just didn't, so I had to come in again and just couldn't catch back up at the end.
Yeah, I did wonder if you were going to try the one. So when you went quite long on that first stint, I thought maybe you can make them last to the end, but fortunately you weren't able to. But yeah, good showing otherwise. Obviously, given your recent pace, this probably isn't your one to celebrate necessarily for you, but it's good points for the team. Obviously, your teammate didn't turn
Fell
up for some
asleep.
reason this week. Is that what happened?
Yeah,
He's done what we call a Paul Garung. Paul Garung did this in race 1. So that's unfortunate then. So not good points then for your team. But yeah, you done what you need to today. You obviously the highest runner. If you say best of the rest behind the Ferraris and the Astons. But I'm sure you'll come back stronger going forward. But thanks so much for your time. Thanks for joining us. And please come see us again soon, won't you?
I will. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Wonderful. That will be Lucas Erosini, who had some decent pace throughout the course of the race, ended up 5th place. And, well, I didn't mean to rhyme any of those sentences. I managed to rhyme all 3 of the pauses. I mean, before we finish off, Carl, have we got any final thoughts about that, about the British Grand Prix?
Yeah, I did. But your microphone just disappeared there when you said that. It was really weird. It might be my side, to be fair. But yeah, a couple of things that I wanted to actually touch on as I went through. Yes, I went through the results there. We had very little in terms of penalties today. So we had 3 seconds then from Brian Moore. No, 3 seconds from Alexander Vickel, 6 seconds from Brian Moore, and then 25 from Daniel in the end as he served 10 in the pit stop. So very good showing. It's so easy to get track limit penalties here. So yeah, great showing, I think, from everyone else. In terms of strategies, it was a 3-stop all round from basically everyone. There was obviously a 1-stop hard to mediums from Ethan Shackleton and Harrison Robinson. The only 2 people who made the medium to hard 1-stop work was first place, Andrew Chenkovan, and 9th place, Alexander Vickel. So, look, Alexander Vickel, get a bit more pace in him, and he could be battling for some wins, at some point. He's clearly got the strategy down. He just needs to, work on that pace to get further up. But I think that's a good showing from him. He struggled through that. He battled a lot and still managed to make the 1-stop work medium to hard. So, I think that's a really good showing. And, yeah, I think just having such little penalties from the grid here just shows that we've got some really good talent in the league this season, and it's going to be a fun one all the way to the end, I hope. But next week then is going to be our first sprint. I'm very much looking forward to it. We've never had a sprint at Belgium. It's obviously the longest track on the calendar, so to have it to get to race there twice is going to be quite fun to watch. Reverse grid. So Andrew, we'll start at the back, and I really wish off the top of my head I remember who was last in the championship. In fact, I've got it here with me. It's currently Alexander Vickel. Yes. So unless Paul Garung appears, but yeah, so that'd be fun. That'd be fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that one. Not the easiest to overtake on unless you do it down the Kemmel Straight. So get a good positioning, and get some good pace, a good setup on, and you can get a really good result there if you further down the grid. The likes of Connor Bryan and Regan and Alexandra, and Aria hopefully will turn up next week and also be able to get it. So I'm really looking forward to that one. But yeah, I think really good showing out today. It's a mix of strategies. Soft tyre, I don't think we saw it. I'm not sure what Daniel went on to at the end there, but he did not get fastest lap. It was 3 tenths away from... No, I lie. It's 1.3 seconds away from Andrew Chenkovan's time. So if he was going for a glory run, he didn't quite pull it off. But fantastic race. Very much enjoyed that one, and I'm looking forward to doing it all again twice next week.
Was very good. I will challenge you on one thing, and that will be, we have had a sprint race at Belgium before. I believe it was it last season or was it 2 seasons ago? It was definitely in the time that I commentated, because that race was so good that you decided that we needed to broadcast the sprint races from now on. So I believe at least that's the case. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something we can talk about. That's something we can talk about post-broadcast. But yeah, thank you very much to those of you who have joined us here today. And well, until next time, it is goodbye.
Underway. Stamps' authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch!
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this.